Thank you, Nina. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. President Marcos orders an investigation into alleged Chinese interference in next month's elections, following claims of troll farm links. And then Russia's deadly Kiev attack, which prompted a rare stop message from President Trump to Putin. And the news starts now. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos has ordered an investigation into alleged foreign interference in next month's elections after a top security official's warning the Chinese state-sponsored groups may be attempting to influence the outcome of the vote.
Ito po ay talaga nakakaalarma at paiigtingin pa po natin ang sa utos na rin po ng ating administrasyon na imbestigahan ng malalim para malaman po natin kung ano man ang katotohanan patungkol po dito.
The order came after a top National Security Council official told the Senate hearing today that signs of Chinese information operations had been detected. His comments coincided with Senator Francis Tolentino presenting what he said was evidence linking the Chinese embassy in Manila to the proliferation of troll farm operations in the Philippines. Tolentino said the embassy had paid a local marketing firm to run online operations and presented what he said was a copy of check issued by the mission as proof. These troll farms were engaged not only to openly provide information and convey the policies of the Chinese government, but also to act as a covert disinformation and influence operation against the Philippine government and the Filipino people. This, according to Tolentino in a statement on Thursday. China's foreign ministry and its embassy in Manila rejected these accusations. At stake in the May elections are 317 congressional seats and thousands of local posts, but the fiercest contest is for 12 spots in the 24-seat Senate, a chamber known for its power in shaping policies. The allegations come amid strained ties and confrontations between China and U.S. allied the Philippines in the past few years over disputed features in the South China Sea. And now to the ongoing devastation in Ukraine. Even amidst the rubble in Kiev, there was a glimmer of hope overnight as rescue workers pulled a man alive after those intense Russian strikes. Sadly, the death toll has now climbed to at least 12, with many more injured. And this violence has even prompted a direct and somewhat unusual message from President Trump to Vladimir Putin. Here's more.
Rescue workers found a man alive in the rubble in Kyiv after Russia hit the Ukrainian capital overnight. At least 12 people were killed in the missile and drone strikes, and at least 90 were wounded in the biggest attack there this year. Anxious friends and relatives of those missing stood near destroyed buildings hoping for good news. The violence led to a rare rebuke from U.S. President Donald Trump, who told Russian President Vladimir Putin on Truth Social, quote, "Vladimir, stop." Trump was asked about his message to Putin during a meeting with Norway's Prime Minister in the Oval Office.
What is your level of frustration with President Putin?
I didn't like last night. I wasn't happy with it. And we're in the midst of talking peace, and missiles were fired. And I was not happy with it. That's what I meant.
Why are you not putting more pressure on Russia? I know a lot of Europeans.
Putting a lot of pressure. You don't know what pressure I'm putting on Russia. They're dealing. You have no idea what pressure I'm putting on Russia. We're putting a lot of pressure.
Can you maybe tell us that?
We're putting a lot of pressure on Russia, and Russia knows that, and some people that are close to it know, or he wouldn't be talking right now.
What concessions has Russia offered up thus far to get to the point where you're closer to peace?
Stopping the war, stopping taking the whole country. Pretty big concession.
Trump said he still believed both sides wanted to make a deal to end the war begun by Russia in 2022. But the White House has also threatened to abandon its efforts at peace talks if no progress is made soon. On Wednesday, Trump slammed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky over a comment in which Zelensky repeated that Kyiv would not recognize Russia's occupation of Crimea. Zelensky, who cut short his trip to South Africa after the Russian attack, said he did not see signs Washington was putting strong pressure on Russia. Ukraine's foreign minister said on X that the brutal strike showed that Russia, not Ukraine, was the obstacle to peace, a viewpoint shared by EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas during her visit to Moldova.
It is clear that we want peace. Moldovans want peace, Ukrainians want peace, the Europeans want peace. But the reality is that Putin is escalating attacks, and it's making it clear that he doesn't want peace. It takes two to want peace. It only takes one to want war. We have to keep supporting Ukraine, that they are able to defend themselves.
Talks did take place between the U.S., Ukrainian, and European officials in London this week, and Zelensky said on Thursday that the meeting with a U.S. representative had not been easy, but that it had been constructive. A U.S. official said Trump's special envoy is expected to meet Putin on Friday for more talks.
And we're following some disturbing news out of France. Police are reporting a deadly knife attack at a school in Nantes. Tragically, one student has been killed and 3 others have been injured. Now, this incident unfolded earlier today, and authorities say the attacker, a 15-year-old student at the school, was eventually stopped by teachers who bravely intervened. Understandably, there's a lot of anxiety among parents. Here's one father, Nicolas, speaking about the wait to be reunited with his children.
Pour le moment, on attend de récupérer nos enfants. Et puis,
For the moment, we're waiting to pick up our children. And we know everything is okay, but we're waiting to be able to hold them in our arms, to make sure and to help deal with the stress this will have caused.
le stress que ça va générer, quoi.
On était en cours de maths du coup et on entend les gens.
We were in a maths class and we heard people running and screaming. It was frightening at first, but we didn't understand. We were saying, "What's happening?" Our teacher was reassuring us, saying it's just people running in the corridors. Then it calmed down, but I and some other people in my class were very, very worried because we were thinking something is not right. Then for a second time people were running and were screaming, "Run, run, run." We heard doors slamming. And we said, something is not right. We wanted to close the door. Then a supervisor came and said to us, get out and run." And then we understood there was something bad, and we took our stuff and we left and we ran, and going down the stairs we saw that Justin was being held by a member of staff, and there you go.
Immobilisé par un personnel de l'établissement.
C'est un choc, je suis parent d'élève.
It's a shock. I'm a parent. I have 2 children at the school who are happy at school, in a school which is open to the world, positive, with students who come from the area who know it. And to find out today that the school is in mourning with a murder in the school by a student, it's an awful thing which as a parent you never imagine having to go through. It's an even greater shock because of the big difference between the everyday positive experience and this awful event.
Vécu au quotidien qui est positif et ce terrible événement est grand.
While police haven't yet officially confirmed the age or gender of the student who was killed, French media are reporting that the victim was a girl. Importantly, at this early stage, investigators say there's nothing to suggest a terrorist motive behind this attack. And we're getting further details from French media. France Info is reporting that the stabbing may have followed some kind of conflict among students, and that the 15-year-old attacker had reportedly been suffering from depression. Local reports also paint a picture of the attacker, saying he was dressed entirely in black and wearing a helmet and balaclava. 2 knives were reportedly found near his belongings. And there are also unconfirmed reports from BFM TV that the attacker may have emailed a document expressing a negative view of society to other students at the school. However, police have not yet been able to verify that information. Turning now to that massive wildfire raging in New Jersey's Pinelands. We've been following this closely, and today there's a significant development. Authorities now announcing an arrest in connection with the blaze, which has already scorched a staggering 15,000 acres and could become the state's largest in years. Take a look. Officials say the Jones Road wildfire, which started Tuesday in the Greenwood Forest Wildlife Management Area, was sparked by an improperly extinguished bonfire. And today, Ocean County Prosecutor Badley Billheimer announced that a suspect is in custody.
But we did arrest a 19-year-old young man from Waretown. His name is Joseph Kling. We believe he is the person responsible for starting this fire, and we intend to prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law.
Prosecutor Billheimer didn't go into all the specifics of how they identified Kling, but he did mention the use of technology and witness statements.
We used some investigative techniques that I don't necessarily want to disclose at this time, but some technological advances, I can say publicly, that we were able to place him at the scene, and we have some witness statements that corroborate that.
While an arrest has been made, the question of why the fire was started remains.
I'm not prepared to discuss a motive at this time, nor does the state have to prove what the motive is. We can just confidently say that we think the fire was set intentionally.
Meanwhile, the fire continues to burn, but there is some progress on containing it. The New Jersey Forest Fire Service says it was about 50% contained as of yesterday evening. Here's Chief Bill Donnelly with an update on what to expect in the coming days.
The fire is consuming the unburned fuels, and once that's completed and those unburned fuels burn up, we should see the smoke subside. Now you're going to see little smokes along the road and things like that there, and when you do, our folks are going out there and they're mopping them up. So this is probably going to continue, at least burning little fires and some smoke up till we get the rain that's forecasted for Saturday.
There was some concerns raised about how close the fire was getting to a nuclear power plant in the area. Chief Donnelly addressed that as well.
We have fire which has burned right up to the nuclear plant. However, that fire is out, the best we can tell, and we are keeping folks in the area to continue to monitor that. So in the event anything should start to smoke or smolder, we'll have resources in place to deal with it immediately.
So a significant development in the Pinelands wildfire with an arrest made, and officials are hopeful that the expected rain this weekend will help bring this massive blaze under full control. Turning now to Oklahoma, where severe weather is making headlines tonight. Massive storm clouds have been rolling across the state, lighting up the sky with frequent lightning strikes as the powerful system brings dangerous conditions to the region. Around 6:20 p.m., a tornado touched down near Freedom with rotation spotted east of town. Tornado warnings hit Dewey, Woodward, Ellis, and Harper counties, triggering sirens in Fargo. Golf ball-sized hail, 60 to 80 miles per hour winds, and flash flooding are causing chaos. Power outages hit 1,500 in Ellis County as storms push east. The tornado threat remains low, but hail, wind, and flooding risks persist. And tonight, we're also seeing some unusually strong words coming out of Canada today. Prime Minister Mark Carney is declaring that the traditional friendship between Canada and the U.S. is, in his words, over. Carney is accusing President Trump of undermining their relationship, particularly when it comes to trade. And as we'll see, the impact is being felt by everyday Canadians. Thomas I. Likeness for more.
On Wednesday, Trump repeated his false claims that the U.S. is subsidizing Canada when it buys Canadian goods.
I love the Canadian people. I like Canada, but it's costing us $200 billion a year to support Canada. $200 billion. And I say, why are we doing that? You know what? We can make our own cars. We have more energy than they do. We have more energy than anybody in the world. We don't need their lumber, obviously. We have more lumber. We have a lot of lumber. We have a lot of everything that they sell us.
The president then focused on the auto industry. He accuses Canada of taking a large percentage of car manufacturing that used to be done in the United States.
I really don't want cars from Canada. So when I put tariffs on Canada, they're paying 25%, but that could go up. in terms of cars. When we put tariffs on, all we're doing is we're saying we don't want your cars.
Canada's share of the North American car industry had been decided by a trade agreement that Trump negotiated during his first term and now doesn't want to honor. That, says Prime Minister Mark Carney, is more evidence that relations between the two countries have changed.
Yesterday was more proof, as if any were needed, that the old relationship with the United States is over. And proof that we need to chart a new path. As I've been saying, this is a tragedy, but it's also our new reality. President Trump has been attacking Canada, America's closest ally, America's closest partner.
The trade war is a major issue in the Canadian election campaign. Not only are politicians campaigning on the issue, but people on the street are worried about Trump's influence on their economy. Many people are boycotting American-made goods and canceling travel to the United States. For his part, Carney says he's not prepared to give in to any unreasonable demands from Trump.
To underscore again, the President, his ideas in his head, his designs, wants to break us so he can own us. The question is, who's going to stand up to that? I'm ready to do it.
While Trump continues to talk tough on trade, he's toned down earlier suggestions that Canada should become the 51st American state. Carney's Liberals are poised to win Monday's election. They have a 3.6% lead over the Conservatives, led by Pierre Poilievre in the latest public opinion poll, but that may not be enough support for Carney to win a majority. He may have to settle for a minority government that would have to be propped up by smaller parties. Thomas I. Likeness, NET25 World News.
And we're getting some conflicting signals out of the U.S. and China today regarding those ongoing trade tensions. Despite President Trump's claims, Beijing is now saying flat out that the two sides are not currently engaged in any consultations or talks about tariffs. Take a look. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Guo Jiakun, held a press briefing earlier today and directly contradicted President Trump's assertions from yesterday. Trump had suggested that trade talks were underway.
Can you clarify, Mr. President, on China?
Yeah, we are going to have a fair deal with China. It's going to be fair.
Are you talking to them actively now?
Actively. Everything's active. Everybody wants to be a part of what we're doing. They know that they can't get away with it any longer, but they're still going to do fine.
But Guo stated very clearly.
Regarding the first question you asked, yesterday, myself and my colleagues from the Ministry of Commerce have clearly answered this question. China and the United States have not held any consultations or negotiations on tariffs, and the United States should not mislead the public.
Adding to the confusion, Guo also said he wasn't aware of any plans by Beijing to exempt tariffs on some U.S. imports.
Regarding the second question you asked, I am not familiar with the specifics of what you are referring to. I suggest you to inquire from the competent authorities in China.
Now, this comes after some reports suggested that China might be considering such a move. So right now, it's a bit of a he said, she said situation, leaving everyone wondering when or even if these two economic giants will actually sit down to discuss those high tariffs they've slapped on each other's goods. And the impact of these tariffs is significant. We're talking about U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods now sitting at a massive 145%, and China's retaliatory tariffs on U.S. imports at 125%. This has really disrupted businesses on both sides, forcing many to rethink their operations. The Trump administration had previously hinted at potentially lowering some tariffs on Chinese goods. But that was reportedly dependent on talks actually happening.
How soon do you want to bring the tariffs on Chinese goods
Well, that
down?
depends on them.
China, for its part, has consistently said that the U.S. needs to completely remove all of those unilateral tariffs if they truly want to resolve this trade dispute. Interestingly, just today, top policymakers in China held a meeting where they specifically emphasized the need to support their own businesses and workers who are facing these rising external shocks. And also, we're following a developing story out of South Korea where former President Moon Jae-in is now pushing back hard against bribery charges. He's accusing prosecutors of political overreach and abusing their power.
Former South Korean President Moon Jae-in has been charged with bribery. That's according to a prosecution office spokesperson on Thursday, who says it's a case involving Moon's former son-in-law having a job at a Thai airline. Prosecutors allege former lawmaker Lee Sang-jik helped arrange the job at a Thai-based corporation that Lee controlled in 2018 to 2020. In return, Lee allegedly secured a top government position, head of South Korea's Small Business and Startup Agency. Lee has been charged with bribery and breach of trust. Prosecutors had been investigating whether Moon's former son-in-law getting hired, along with the salary and living expenses he received, amounted to an improper deal. They allege the job's salary of around $180,000 was irregular and constituted a bribe to the then president.
In any case, it seems that my indictment on bribery charges is a clear example of how the prosecution is becoming political and the abuse of prosecutorial power.
사례 같아서 앞으로 이제 그 점을 내 개인적인
Beyond revealing my personal innocence, I plan to focus on properly uncovering and informing the public about the abuse and politicization of the prosecution's power.
드러내고 좀 국민들에게 알리는데 좀 주력을 할 계획입니다.
Moon, now 72, served as president from 2017 to 2022. He was succeeded by conservative leader Yoon Suk-yeol, who was recently impeached and removed from office after a controversial declaration of martial law.
And tonight, across Europe, thousands are coming together to remember one of history's darkest chapters. In both Germany and Poland, moving ceremonies are taking place to mark Israel's Holocaust Remembrance Day, a powerful reminder of the millions who died.
Well, marching, thank you.
Hello. Hello. Generale, proszę. Hey, telephone. Can you
Colombia is facing political turmoil after a bombshell accusation from a former foreign minister, Alvaro Leyva. In a public letter, Leyva accused President Gustavo Petro of being a drug addict, claiming he disappeared for 2 days during an official trip to Paris in 2023. Take a look. Leyva wrote, "It was in Paris that I was able to confirm that you have a drug addiction problem. Your recovery, sadly, has not taken place." He also listed missed meetings, incoherent speeches, and erratic trips as further evidence of troubling behavior. The letter has sparked an uproar, with opposition lawmakers now demanding President Petro undergo drug and psychiatric tests to determine if he is fit to govern. Senator Maria Fernanda Cabal posted on social media, "This is extremely serious. Alvaro Leyva confirms to the country that Petro is a drug addict. Petro must undergo medical examinations to determine his capacity to govern. This has always been an open secret." President Petro has denied the allegations, but did not address them directly. On social media, he responded with sarcasm, writing, "Isn't Paris full of parks, museums, bookstores more interesting than the letter's writer to spend 2 days in? Almost everything in Paris is more interesting. Don't I have daughters and granddaughters in Paris who are far more interesting than the writer?" He also stated, "I've simply been slandered." Petro explained he spent the time in Paris with his daughter and grandchildren and insisted there was always security present during official visits. The controversy comes as Colombia faces record cocaine production under President Petro's leadership and as his drug policy, including calls for global legalization of cocaine, remains under intense scrutiny. Tensions have also spilled across borders in January. Petro clashed with Donald Trump over deportation flights. Trump then threatened sanctions, which made Petro back down. But then came the final twist when he claimed the U.S. revoked his visa. He said, "I can no longer go because I believe they took away my visa. I didn't need to have one. But anyway, I've already seen Donald Duck several times, so I'll go see other things." Was President Petro's disappearance in Paris simply a personal matter, or is there something more he's not revealing? Is there a cover-up, or is this just political gossip? And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. The Shanghai Auto Show is turning heads this week, and not just with your standard new models. We're seeing everything from experimental flying cars, yes, you heard that right, to SUVs with built-in hot pot cooking stations. It's a wild look at how car makers are trying to win over buyers in China's incredibly competitive market.
Car manufacturers are eager to stand out in China's constantly innovating auto market. Nowhere is this more obvious than at Shanghai's auto show, running this week, where new models on display feature immersive entertainment, fragrance control, in-car refrigerators, and even hot pot cooking equipment. China's car market, the world's largest and most electrified, is seeing a brutal price war. That's as a trade spat with the US and electric vehicle tariffs in Europe have pushed car makers' focus onto the domestic market. Here, gadgets are major selling points. Li Xiang, a marketing expert at Chinese EV maker NIO, said the pace of innovation was relentless.
Chinese customers are expecting very high level of novelty and new technologies, and the speed of product enhancement is very, very fast in Chinese market because innovation is happening every day. So our product launch cadence is actually like 2 or 3 times faster than the legacy brands. It puts a very high pressure on manufacturers, but also thanks to that, we got the chance to develop a lot of new techs here.
Reuters reporter Casey Hall was at the show speaking to car makers and testing out the gadgets.
Some of the coolest innovations and pieces of tech we've seen at the Shanghai Auto Show this week include 4D digital cockpits, where you can be watching a movie or playing a game when your car is parked, and the car will actually shake and move in response to what's happening on the screen. We've also seen some car makers really focusing on in-car fragrances.
Over 100 models and concept vehicles have been unveiled, with crowds flocking to see Chinese car maker XPeng's experimental flying car, a passenger-carrying drone. However, perhaps the most truly Chinese innovation for the local market is a feature of Rox Motors' $40,000 SUV. It aims to capitalize on a trend for outdoor activities with a tailgate kitchen extension that cooks hot pot, a go-to in Chinese cuisine. Chief Strategy Officer David Wu explained.
Since the Chinese stomach is not for cold, they like hot pot, hot food, hot drink. So there's nothing that's more relaxed than a cup of tea.
Talk about a light show. Residents in southern Brazil were treated to an incredible sight the other night. A massive meteor streaking across the sky. Take a look. That's right, the Heller and Young Space Observatory reported that this bright meteor lit up the night over the state of Rio Grande do Sul on Wednesday. It actually entered Earth's atmosphere over the Atlantic Ocean and traveled inland before burning up. And experts are saying this was the most intense meteor event seen in that region since 2020.
Ocorreu a queda de meteoro superbólido no...
A superbolide meteor fell in Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil. This meteor entered the atmosphere over the Atlantic Ocean, traveled northeast of Rio Grande do Sul, and disintegrated over the territory. It is already considered perhaps the largest meteor to have fallen here in Rio Grande do Sul.
que já caiu aqui no Rio Grande do Sul.
And get this, the disintegration of this space rock was so bright, it actually outshone the moon.
Buscas estão sendo realizadas já no Rio.
Searches are already underway in Rio Grande do Sul to find meteorite debris. We are conducting a series of analyses to more precisely determine the area where these meteorite fragments might have scattered.
Se espalharam esses detritos que são meteoritos.
What a spectacular event. Luckily, this rare phenomenon was caught on camera, giving us all a glimpse of that incredible light show that lit up the Brazilian night sky. A reminder of just how dynamic our universe can be. You know, sometimes it's easy to forget just how much we've learned about the universe. Well, this week marks a pretty incredible milestone. The Hubble Space Telescope is celebrating its 35th birthday. Launched way back in 1990, this amazing piece of technology has completely changed how we see the cosmos. And to mark the occasion, NASA has just released some stunning new images. Take a look. For 35 years now, the Hubble has been our eye in the sky, capturing breathtaking views from our own solar system all the way to galaxies billions of light years away. Dr. Jennifer Weissman, Hubble's senior project scientist, explains just how much this telescope has opened our eyes.
This eye on the sky has given people around the world a new view of the universe, how vast it is, how beautiful it is, and how active it is, and how we are all fellow citizens of planet Earth just looking up in awe and wonder at what we're discovering because of this wonderful miracle of technology.
And speaking of breathtaking views, to celebrate this anniversary, NASA has unveiled 4 brand new images. Dr. Weissman takes us through some of these celestial wonders.
So to celebrate Hubble's 35th birthday, we're releasing 4 new images from Hubble. There are different parts of the universe. One of them is the Rosette Nebula, or a part of it, where stars are still forming. And you can see dark clouds and then lit up clouds behind those where new stars are ionizing the gas and showing off this glow. We also are releasing an image of a planetary nebula. Now, this colorful nebula really has nothing to do with planets. That's just what they called it decades ago. But it is really the remnants of a dead star system, and the outflows from the remaining white dwarf star are creating this glowing cloud that's expanding away from the central sources there. We have an image from outside of our galaxy of another galaxy. This is a spiral galaxy. It doesn't look quite like we think our Milky Way does because the spiral arms are kind of smudged together. We call it a flocculent spiral. But in the middle, you see this amazing bar-like structure. These are common in some types of spiral galaxies, and they are the mechanism by which gas and dust from the outer parts of the galaxy are funneled in toward the middle and can fuel the formation of new stars. We think our Milky Way also has some kind of a bar in the center. And then much closer to home in our own solar system, we've taken new pictures of Mars. These really wonderful clear shots of Mars show different features on the planet from different perspectives. As Mars is rotating, we see the icy poles on the top, we see clouds, and we can also see mountain ranges and deep canyons and plain structures. Mars is an interesting planet to study, both for what it's doing now, but for what it was like in the past. Using Hubble in new exciting ways because Hubble sees wavelengths or colors of light that other observatories don't see, and vice versa, so we use them in complement. Scientists are using Hubble's ultraviolet light capabilities to see this energetic light that comes from star-forming regions and also explosive events out in the universe from energetic stars. We're using Hubble to complement the infrared light observations that the newer Webb Space Telescope can do. Webb can see deep into the universe, some of the earliest galaxies. Hubble sees nearer galaxies in all the detail, seeing its hot spots of star formation. With this information together, scientists are piecing together how galaxies have grown and merged and changed over all of cosmic history.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Have a great weekend. Good night.